Welcome back to our Line Opinion panel for one last segment. Prosecutors have dropped the charge against actor and producer Alec Baldwin in the deadly shooting of the Rust cinematographer Halyna Hutchins. They dismissed the charge, quote, without prejudice, end quote. Now, film armorer Hannah Gutierrez-Reed is now the lone defendant in the case and faces a fourth-degree felony count of involuntary manslaughter. Now, a pretrial hearing for her has been delayed from mid-May to mid-August. And Sophie, let me start here. What does it mean for a case to be, quote, dismissed without prejudice? What should the public take from that move by prosecutors?
Well, I think there are a couple things to note. The first is that the prosecutor is reserving the right to refile the case. And so they're saying, we're not going to move forward right now, but it is possible that circumstances would necessitate filing again in the future, either the same charges or different charges, but they're reserving the right to file on the same charges. And this is pretty typical, I think, in situations where there's an evolving case and they don't quite know what evidence might come forward, be brought forth in the future. So,
and the two folks that are on the case now made that point. We're looking at a lot of evidence now.
Yes, and I think that that's an important thing to note. Is that new evidence is rumored to have come to the fore, and there's some great reporting that helped to sort of explain that to the community. But we're not going to just sort of jump to conclusions. We're going to do the due diligence that's necessary in order to make sure that the charges that we're bringing, and I'm sort of speaking in the voice of the prosecutor, which I don't normally do, but the charges that are brought forward, prosecutors want to make sure that they're ones that they have the likelihood of winning, right? They've got to get through several steps. Now, part of the purpose of dismissing the charges without prejudice at this point, and I guess I'll just say maybe this was implied, but if you do it with prejudice, that means we're done here.
Gotcha.
Without prejudice, part of it is that it stops the clock on New Mexico's speedy trial requirements. And so there's a certain amount of time that can elapse from when you bring charges to when the trial happens. And there's a little flexibility in there, but they're basically saying we're going to stop the clock on this one because we don't want to run up against that limitation. And if you look at me and ask me how many days that is, I will say I forgot that right after law school because I don't work in criminal law.
Dan, interesting. Sophie mentioned about new things that are coming out. The unnamed source told Phaedra Haywood at the Santa Fe New Mexican that the revolver that Mr. Baldwin used, the deadly shot, had been fitted with a new hammer at some point. That's a big deal because until this point, the FBI report on record has stated the gun couldn't have fired by itself. And of course, this is to be determined later in the court case. But that's an interesting little twist there because we've sort of been looking at that gun and how Mr. Baldwin handled it, but not necessarily the weapon itself. What does this say to you with this information?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and I think that goes to Sophie's point a little bit about this evolving evidence in the case.
Right.
It does raise some questions in my mind, kind of about the initial investigation too. But clearly, maybe some new evidence has come to light, about this gun and exactly if it could have fired, in it accidentally or not. So I mean, that may well be behind kind of some of this decision. I think politically it kind of raises the question whether the DA might have gotten a little in front of her skis a little bit, with the initial charges. And so that'll be
enhancement that was dropped.
Right. Yeah. So a lot of that, I mean, kind of from a political perspective, but from a legal perspective, I think the special prosecutors, the two that are now on the case, seem to be maybe proceeding a little cautiously with this, while still leaving the door open for what kind of evidence does emerge.
That's a good
with
point
the gun.
there. Kerry Morrison and Jason Lewis, of course, we haven't named them earlier. Thank you for doing that, special prosecutors. And does this feel more legitimate to you, the case? These people are on board. The tone has changed a lot, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's sort of the prosecutor became the story, and all of the media circus that was involved in it. Now it seems like perhaps they're doing something that's a little more cautious, but the clock doesn't stop on public opinion related to what's happening right now, and it looks like Alec Baldwin is being let off because he is a celebrity, and they just announced that from their perspective that it's over.
That's right.
So that became the story. That the charges were dropped is what they announced to everyone, and that's what people start to see, and then they question that. So I do hope that people will not forget Halyna Hutchins, who lost her life.
That's right.
through no fault of her own, and somebody is responsible.
Let me, on that very point, Kathy McGill, thank you so much. Sophie, let me turn to you. I get this question a lot. We have a person who pled out, or apparently got a plea deal.
Correct.
Can those be turned around? Because I've had people ask me, like, does this guy know something? And why was he allowed to do this deal? And can we undo the deal?
Okay, so the majority of cases actually do end up in plea agreements.
Okay.
And so I think that it is short-sighted to look at that and say, well, that's the sign of some sort of smoking gun.
Right.
I mean, it could be something as simple as he didn't have the resources to fully defend himself, felt that he wasn't going to get, I mean, I don't want to in any way impugn the expertise of the public defenders, but they will have been talking with him if that's who he was working with, or I actually don't know whether he's a private counsel or not.
Right.
But there is a calculation that is made in many criminal trials where the person says, like, I can end this now.
Right.
And all that means, or I can go to trial and there are greater risks to me.
Right.
So I do think it's worth keeping in mind that the majority of criminal cases, we do see these offers for plea deals,
Right.
and we often do see that they are taken.
Does it make a difference, again, a layman's question,
Yeah.
does it make a difference that the plea deal was made with the district attorney but not with these special prosecutors? Does that make a difference in the legal world?
I don't believe that it will.
Okay.
I don't believe that it will.
Okay.
That's actually an interesting wrinkle that I haven't thought about before.
Interesting point, because people are speaking, Kathy, in sort of this cryptic language now, like we're backing up a little bit, we're taking a look at some other things. Are we anticipating some major thing to come down here? I'm not sure if personally I can see something. Can you see something that these folks can come up with?
I don't see anything. It's been almost 2 years now,
Yeah.
and certainly there have been investigations. I hope those investigations were comprehensive, and they have all the information that they needed to make a decision about prosecution. So I don't see anything new.
Yeah. When you think about it, Dan, we've had the state police investigate, we've had the FBI investigate, the DA's office has investigated, we've had a lot, the sheriff's office, thank you, Santa Fe Sheriff's Office has investigated, everyone has investigated, but we have all these different angles of attack here. There's not a single cohesive line of reasoning here, which is why we go to court, of course, to suss these things out. But what does it say about the case? Is it really that complicated that all these investigators are coming up with different conclusions?
I mean, maybe it is, but I think also when you get that many jurisdictions involved, I mean, everybody maybe has their own little take or their own focus of an investigation. It doesn't seem like it should be that complicated, like Kathy mentioned, 2 years almost after the fact. But clearly there's still some unresolved issues there. I mean, I was interested that they're going on with filming the show after all this, not in New Mexico, but
Right.
in Montana, I believe. So,
Like it never happened.
Well,
Right.
that's
That was
worth
weird.
noting that is
Yeah.
an element of the civil case.
Yes.
In which Ms. Hutchins' husband, in order to receive a payout on the civil case, he is now a producer on the show. And I think this is actually, I don't mean this facetiously, I am quite confident that he is a producer who does not have any responsibility for firearms on the set. And it's worth noting that this is also an element of it, is the sort of who has responsibility for what.
That's right. Even as a producer,
Even
not necessarily as,
exactly,
the person handling
even
the
as a
gun.
producer,
That's
yeah.
right. Interesting point there. Dan, let me bounce you, and I want Kathy to get on this. The media. Is it reasonable at this point to talk about what the responsibility we have to give the entire picture to the public in some way? But this is an evolving case as well. You can only report so much that you have the facts, but in a high-profile, celebrity-driven case, that doesn't happen, does it? It's a circus. It's a media circus. How did we do on this one, in your opinion?
yeah, I mean, I haven't, with the caveat, I haven't covered this case myself, but some of my colleagues have. And I think when you have the international media showing up for, and I think some of the local authorities maybe aren't used to that kind of level of media, very aggressive kind of.
Right. That's right.
So I don't know. I think there have been some things that maybe have been, some headlines that may be a little stronger than the fact, and there's more nuances to the case, especially with the case being, dismissed, but possibly being refiled. I don't know that the media, I think the local media did a good job. I'm not sure whether those nuances were really conveyed in some of the popular press.
I appreciate you saying
Nicely
it that
put,
way.
nicely
Yeah,
put.
I agree with that, actually. Good job there, Dan. Thanks again to the Line panel, as always. Be sure to let us know what you think about any of the topics the Line covered on our Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram pages, and catch up on any episode you might have missed on the PBS app or the Roku or Smart TV. And as always, thanks again for joining us and for staying informed and engaged. We'll see you again next week in Focus.